Ivanka Trump is getting called out on social media for attempting to greenwash her father's record on the environment. So now the daughter, first daughter, and advisor to the president, tweeted on Thursday that she was proud to support the president's signing of an executive order. Well, this executive order, of course, would basically call to plant 1 trillion trees worldwide by 2030. Oh, good. We're doing some we're planting some trees. What could be wrong with that? I mean, planting trees is good, right? Yeah, it is. And of course, I support planting trees. This is, of course, is part of the World Economic Forum's project, and so they're calling on people to plant trees. All right, cool. Again, I'm in favor of that. But here's the thing: it's not going to really do a whole lot if we continue to do the policies the Trump administration is pushing forward and has been doing for the last 4 years. So, for example, the Trump administration has been pumping additional carbon and methane into the atmosphere and has been gutting environmental regulations and rules that were originally passed by the Obama administration. Of course, that has a lot to do with it. Anything that Obama did, Donald Trump instinctively has to undo. And, of course, if it helps corporations, then obviously Donald Trump is in favor of that as well. Also, if it goes against windmills, Donald Trump has an irrational hatred of windmills, which is kind of hilarious and sad at the same time, because then you can make a Don Quixote joke, how he's tilting at windmills all the time, and also NIMBY jokes, and then windmill cancer jokes, which is always fun as well. Ridiculous. So anyway, now more seriously, the president has, of course, embraced fossil fuels and has pursued an anti-environmental agenda, rolling back dozens of rules aimed at protecting natural resources. In fact, just today, The Hill reported that the Environmental Protection Agency will now allow utilities, these power companies, to store toxic waste from coal in open pits. So coal sludge, just a nice little open, unlined pits. They didn't even want to put plastic in there to try to keep it from, leaking into the soil and into the groundwater. That was too much for these companies who lobbied extensively for this rule. They're like, no, we don't even want to do that. Let's just have the EPA allow us to put this coal ash, slurry, sludge, whatever it is, into these giant open pits. Because we don't know what else to do with it. I mean, we thought about dumping into the river, and we're going to do that, but the rivers are kind of far away, and so let's just make these pits. There are 400 such pits across the United States, and probably more now. And so there's that. Now, research was also found, by the way, and I mentioned plastic lining, but even so, plastic-lined coal ash ponds are also likely to leak. So really, they couldn't even do the minimum, which would have leaked anyway. But those risks are even higher when a clay barrier is the only layer used to hold what is basically being described to in the article as arsenic-laced sludge. Yummy. A big old glass of that. I guess maybe if you're like Mitch McConnell, you're like, oh yeah, I drink it all up. I drink your milkshake. Ugh, gross. All right. So now, Lisa Evans, an attorney with Earth Justice, which is fighting the ruling in court, which, look, depending on what court it gets to, if it's in some of the lower courts, then maybe they've got a chance. But you bring this to the Supreme Court, I don't know. Odds are not good. I'm just saying, odds are not good. She said, when ponds without lining leak, it's often more aggressive, faster, and harder to control. She added that utilities are asking for favors and exemptions, and the EPA, under the Trump administration, is willing to give them and is willing to rush to provide these exemptions. That's what the Trump administration is doing. They also, of course, eliminated and slightly replaced the Clean Power Plan with weaker regulation, and is in the process of eliminating other regulations that limit greenhouse gas emissions President Trump has also lifted bans on oil and gas exploration in the Arctic, National Wildlife Refuge, and parts of the National Petroleum Reserve in Alaska, and in coastal waters around the United States, and in areas formerly protected as national monuments in Utah. And that's, of course, among all the different efforts at deregulation that he has done. It's basically a disaster. So, look, you look at Donald Trump and his record on the environment, it's horrible. It's horrifying. And I'm sorry, like, I see some comments already where wouldn't it be a twist if Donald Trump banned fracking? He wouldn't ban fracking. I mean, look, even if he understood that fracking is actually driving a decrease in the use of coal, which might actually slightly benefit the coal industry, he wouldn't do it. Again, he's not smart enough to realize that there's a connection there, but also all the lobbyists, from these oil and gas companies, he works for them. So anyway, now, one more thing that he's doing, by the way, is, he appointed Amy Coney Barrett to the Supreme Court. Amy Coney Barrett's father was a lawyer for Shell Energy. So that's an oil company, and whose nomination has been pushed by energy companies as well that are part of the Chamber of Commerce, likely because there's a really big case coming to the Supreme Court very soon, which would rule on whether companies should be held liable for climate change. You know that climate change is being driven by just 100 corporations. About 70% of the emissions is being emitted by 100 corporations. It's not the people that, and I love the retort from idiots, right? They'll come up and be like, oh, you drive a car to work, but you're concerned about climate change. Little hypocrisy. No, moron. No, it's the 100 corporations that are responsible for 70% of the emissions, the vast majority of the emissions. So maybe we should, rein those guys in first, and then maybe work on some alternatives, like electric cars being hooked up, of course, to a grid that is not running on coal, natural gas, or anything like that, or oil, or whatever. I know, it's just, those people drive me nuts because the information is literally there that you can look at. And you can find out very, very easily. But they think that this is some sort of ode to environmentalists. Hilarious. All right, anyway. Oh, by the way, on that, in the rush to confirm Amy Coney Barrett, they did note that the companies are expecting to be treated more favorably in the Supreme Court. Gee, I wonder why. All that said, planting trees is not going to offset this horrible record on climate change. It's just not going to do a goddamn thing. And so there you go. All right. So let's get to fun responses to this from social media, because I always love to read those. Justin Hendricks points out that your administration has destroyed environmental regulations and agreements and has hastened climate change, and adds, you are killing your own children. False. Actually, poor people are going to be most affected first. You're going to have developing countries that actually get the short end of the stick about this. And the reason I say that is the United States and these Western countries, we actually had our chance to go through oil, natural gas, coal, and through that development. Less developed countries, however, we're telling them that you can't use that stuff, and we're not helping them to be able to modernize their energy systems. And so we're kind of fucking them over too, when you think about it. And so it's interesting because libertarians, they try to use that point to say, well, that's why we shouldn't ban oil, natural gas, or anything like that, because those other countries, they deserve to. No, what we need to do, if we actually are concerned about the environment, is to actually go and invest in those countries and help them modernize their energy systems so that they don't have to go through those phases of energy development. And they can actually get to a point of where they're not contributing to global climate emissions and still are able to get their energy. That would make sense, but of course we're not going to do that because, LOL capitalism, and lots of donations from the fossil fuel sector to our politicians, who control everything. All right, anyway, more. Oh, yeah, on Ivanka's kids, by the way. I did want to mention that. You know that as these smaller, less affluent countries get destroyed by climate change, her kids are still going to live a life of air-conditioned luxury in the United States. So, as the rest of the planet burns. By the time that they're going to be affected, it'll be too late. So, unfortunately, that person is wrong about it, but I like the sentiment. All right, there's more. One person says, question, with all the deregulation, where do you plan on planting those trees? Maybe they'll replace them in California after the wildfires are over, so that then next year they can get burnt down again. Forest management, right? In fact, this is the next couple of questions here. But first, comments. One person says, first your father does everything he can to deregulate and destroy the environment. Then you pretend to save trees. Yes, trees. Mr. McDollop says, don't try to limit our use of fossil fuels, as the U.S. emits more per capita than any other country in the world. Just plant trees, which would take 30 plus years to have an impact. It is greenwashing. And the mass candidate says, you're an incredible advocate for the climate, Ivanka. A true saint if there ever was one. Just like your dad, who claims science doesn't know if climate change is real. Indeed. And then, finally, let's get to forest management. Sharan asks, is your father going to rake all the leaves and fallen branches? Forest management. Andrea Valeni says, will that include 1 billion rakes to make sure the forest beds are fireproof? Asking for a friend. I love the forest management. The problem with California and the wildfires is they just don't have forest management. They need to have better forest management. Well, do you know who controls most of the forests that are currently burning down right now? The federal government. So maybe the federal government, i.e. the thing that you control, might want to do better forest management. So that's kind of your problem, dude. Just saying. And then finally, Leslie says, proud to support this ambitious effort to pose as a public servant to further my family's wealth. And obviously, that's what they've been doing the entire time. The Trump family is only in power in order to increase their own wealth. We see it all the time, how they're milking public programs, directing campaign money into their own pockets, Secret Service paying for, stays at their hotels and golf cart rentals at Trump's, different golf courses. We see that transfer of money from public hands into Donald Trump's private finances. And that's, of course, the reason why you should divest from your businesses, or at least one of them. There's plenty of excellent reasons that you should divest from your public businesses before you get into office, but that's just one of them. Obviously, the corruption and the grift and all that stuff. But he doesn't care. They don't care because they're all about the grift. Always have been. If you enjoyed this video, please give us a like and share with your friends. You can subscribe and help out the channel by becoming a patron. It's patreon.com/Jeff Waldorf, or you can become a channel member as well by hitting the join button below.